What's going on, y'all? Today we got Encore, the story of Michael Jordan's real last dance documentary, man. Before we get into it, just gonna say this for probably the next 4 more videos and then we done saying it. The channel memberships are here, man, starting at $2.99, $3. My brothers and sisters, if you want the perks all, I'll reply to every comment of every member. Every comment you comment on the video, you get a reply, my brothers and sisters. Also, member shoutouts in the intros and the outros of the videos. Also, we can connect on social media if you guys want to talk sports on Instagram, on TikTok, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We could talk sports in the DMs, you know what I'm saying? Talk about the top 10s, whatever you want to talk about, man. And let's get into it now. Word.
Jordan. Open. Chicago with the lead. The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship.
Okay. Original YouTube production. Okay, my boy going hard.
At all knows that Michael Jordan is retiring again from professional basketball.
I am here to announce my retirement from the game of basketball.
I had my great reign in basketball. No matter what you guys say, or if I come and hang around the game because I still love the game, that doesn't mean I'm coming back.
Speculation has ended. Rumors confirmed. The greatest player of all time is back, and he's wearing a Wizards uniform.
The story of Michael Jordan needs no introduction. The tales of his journey to becoming one of the greatest athletes the world has ever seen, from being cut by his high school varsity team to the flu game, have been told countless times, some becoming somewhat legends themselves. However, for many, the journey of Jordan as a basketball icon ends the day he hung up his Bulls jersey. The headlines end, the documentary stops filming, and the spotlight fades away. And while that was the last time the world saw Michael at his most memorable, the reality is that's not where the story ends. There's more chapters in his legacy that deserve to be explored. A brief moment in time where we saw one of the game's greats try to defy Father Time. And for a split second, maybe he did. Father Time, it wasn't on the court.
Now, do you ever have second thoughts? Do you ever say, like today, I just feel like I should be playing?
No, I don't regret my decision at all. I think it's the appropriate one. Or else no one else will have an opportunity to win if I keep playing.
For real,
After
though.
being away from the game of basketball for almost 2
That's
years,
real life.
in January of 2000, Michael Jordan agreed to a 5-year deal to become the head of basketball operations for the Washington Wizards. This included a minority stake in the ownership of the team, which was set to raise to 20% if the Wizards exceeded expectations. In his time off the court, Jordan had become increasingly interested in running a franchise, even trying to purchase the then Charlotte Hornets before the deal fell through.
You were going to buy a team. What, it was the Hornets, right, Charlotte? Yeah.
Well, actually, they came to me. I think I didn't search out their opportunity.
Right.
They came to me and said, well, what do you think about it? And I evaluated it, and it just didn't fit. I wanted to have a lot more control than what they were willing to give. And respectfully, he made the choice that he wanted to make, and I don't disagree with that. I'm happy that he did, but I could not participate if I couldn't make the final decision on my money.
Michael's new role allowed him total freedom to build a franchise the way he wanted, something that he wasn't sure of, saying, quote, "This is new to me. Being in charge is something that I never had the opportunity to do. Maybe that's not the ingredient to turn this thing around. Then again, it may be. That's the beauty of trying." Jordan had his ups and downs in his first offseason in control, choosing to reach for high school standout Kwame Brown with the #1 overall pick in the 2001 NBA draft. Brown would go on to have a 12-year NBA career, where he put up respectable numbers but never lived up to the expectations of a #1 overall pick. In the meantime, Michael was left with the task of rebuilding a team that had finished with the second worst record in the entire NBA. How would the greatest competitor the game had ever seen on the court be able to turn around a franchise off of it? However, instead of bringing in a new front office, reevaluating the roster, and bringing in young assets to replace the older players on the roster, Jordan chose to do something different. On April 20, 2001, the Wizards announced the hiring of 49-year-old Doug Collins to become the team's new head coach. Collins had been the coach of a young Michael Jordan during his early years as a Bull, and had been out of the league since 1998. Naturally, this raised some speculation about whether or not Jordan was considering a comeback. Over the course of the offseason, Jordan hadn't made any changes besides adding his own former head coach and drafting a promising big man to the roster, failing to land many younger players or assets to the team. Now, with 2001 quickly approaching, some big questions were being raised in DC. Just as the media had speculated for months prior, on September 25, 2001, a 38-year-old Michael Jordan announced his return to the game of basketball. After almost 3 years, the greatest player the game had ever seen was making a comeback to the hardwood. The move was met by a mixture of excitement and concern, with many die-hard fans believing Jordan could ruin the storybook ending to his career. However, none of this fazed Michael. The entire offseason leading up to the 2001 season, Jordan had been quietly training to get back into playing shape, inviting many of the top players from around the NBA to come play organized pickup games.
Just as I started to play against some of the other players who played in the league,
he was averaging 31 before he came back as well.
Moves off.
Yeah. I know his stats before he came back was probably different.
Maintain some type of consistency to stay with him. Although I know this is not, in the summer, is not the same as the season. I was looking for any kind of signs that would give me the motivation that, hey, if I get and start working fitness-wise, I get myself in good shape. I can compete. I can make this thing work.
On October 30, 2001, Michael Jordan made his return to the NBA in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks. The build-up to the game made it one of the most anticipated matchups of the year, as the last time the world had seen Jordan on the court was the '98 Finals. Michael would score his first basket less than 2 minutes into the game, having an up-and-down game on his way to a 19-point outing. With 18 seconds left, the Wizards had the ball with the chance to tie the game. Everyone in the Garden that night knew who would take the shot, and it seemed like this was the beginning of a new chapter in Jordan's legacy.
By the Wizards, Michael Jordan, with Whitney's have the hot hand.
Give it up! Give it up!
Jordan for the tie.
Oh, wow!
The Wizards would go on to lose by 2 in their opening game, and leave many people wondering if Jordan had made the right decision in his return. As the early season wore on, Washington got off to a slow start, winning only 2 of their first 11 games and struggling to find chemistry. Though they were far from competing for championships, Jordan still had championship expectations in practice, pushing some of the young players harder than many of them were ready for.
Well, like I tell people, Michael was fun. He had a unique personality. But then there was also another side where it was the talk and trash Michael Jordan. And at times, me and a couple of the young guys would come up to him and say, hey, Mike, why don't you think about putting us in the brand Jordan collection?
Right.
And he'd look at me and say, hey, Rip, my sneakers for all-stars.
In addition to this, the team was struggling with the newfound national spotlight. Though they had gotten off to a rough start, MJ was still must-see TV, and the Wizards had gone from 28th in the league in attendance to selling out every home game, and found themselves on national TV almost every night. An overtime win against the Celtics sparked 16 wins over their next 25 games, putting them on pace to make the playoffs for the first time since being eliminated by none other than Jordan and the Bulls back in 1997.
And here's Calbertini shot at the buzzer, and the Bulls have won and have eliminated the Washington Bullets.
Over this stretch, Michael was averaging over 25 points per game, showcasing a scoring ability that many people didn't think he still had. Specifically after a bad loss against the Pacers, Jordan was out to prove that he could still play.
When I was coaching in Washington, we played the Indiana Pacers, and we were down 25 at the end of the third quarter. And I took Michael out of the game, and I said, look, Michael, I know you think we can still win this game, but we got to play, in 2 nights. And if we make a little run, I'll put you back in the game. Well, we didn't. Well, I found out that after the game was over that he had 8 points in the game, and he broke a streak of like 860-something games in double figures. Fast forward, we get on the plane, we get back about 3:30 in the morning in Washington. We play the
51-point performance against the Hornets was the record for points in a game by someone over the age of 38 at the time, and was followed up by a 45-point outing the very next game against the Nets, proving that MJ was still capable of being one of the game's best players even past his prime. During these 2 games, Michael was scoring at will, getting to all his spots with ease and showcasing a veteran skill set that was much different from the Jordan we've seen in the past. Crafty layups around the rim replaced high-flying dunks, and fadeaway elbow jumpers filled the stat sheet instead of acrobatic finishes. Michael Jordan was no longer the player the world fell in love with in Chicago, but one thing remained the same: he could still prove all the critics wrong. Heading into the All-Star break, Michael Jordan appeared things were headed in the right direction. Everything changed the last game before All-Star weekend.
Off the glass, what a shot! And he's down and he's hurt. He hurt his knee.
Jordan would collide with teammate Etan Thomas, resulting in a lateral tear in his meniscus. He would try to push through the injury, but after losing 9 out of the next 10 games while trying to fight through the pain, he finally had enough. On February 27th, Jordan elected to have arthroscopic knee surgery to repair the torn cartilage in his knee, and after attempting to make a second return that season, decided to sit out for the rest of the year. Jordan's first season with the Wizards was filled with ups and downs on the scoreboard, but Michael had proven that he could still compete with the NBA's best. He averaged 22 points per game and led the team with 5 assists, helping to lead the Wizards to an 18-win improvement over the previous season. Now there were multiple questions surrounding the future of Jordan in Washington, and the 2002 offseason could determine the future of the franchise. The 2002 offseason marked a crossroads for the Wizards organization. With Jordan announcing he would return for the following season, the team was left with 2 options. Should they bring in young talent to help build for the future, or should they trade away their young assets to bring in some players that would help the team win now, with Michael's playing days inevitably numbered? Not surprising to many, the team chose to do the former, signing an established scorer in Larry Hughes and trading away a young Rip Hamilton to the Pistons for Jerry Stackhouse. Hamilton was coming off the best year in his young career and would go on to win 2 championships with Detroit and make multiple All-Star teams. Meanwhile, Stackhouse had established himself as one of the NBA's best players over the years, averaging 29.8 points per game just 1 year prior. If the direction was uncertain before, these moves confirmed the Wizards' intentions. It was now or never to make a playoff push. Some people would question these moves at the time, wondering why a franchise would throw many of their young assets to the side in hopes of winning with a going on 40-year-old Michael Jordan. That being said, the stage was set for what would become MJ's final NBA season, and the spotlight on Washington was brighter than ever. At the age of 40. The most memorable moment came at 2003's All-Star Weekend, where Jordan would be voted in for his final All-Star appearance. Atlanta was buzzing with nostalgia, as people had begun to realize this was the last time we would see Michael alongside the NBA's best. Though he'd been voted in as a reserve for the game, numerous players offered Jordan their starting spot, which he eventually accepted from Vince Carter. The game itself serves as one of the last iconic moments we have of Jordan on the hardwood. Michael went toe-to-toe with some of the very players who had grown up idolizing him, and finally got to have a face-off with a student of his own game, Kobe Bryant.
Mike, after you face the ball, where else you gonna go?
You left your feet.
Yeah, but where else you gonna go?
In the game, I go for you.
I spun all the way around.
I go for these ribs right here.
At halftime, Jordan was honored with a tribute from Mariah Carey, a performance that served as the perfect send-off from the NBA's biggest stage. However, this tribute wasn't the only glimpse of vintage Jordan that would be seen that night. With the game on the line and the East in possession, everyone in the arena knew who was taking the shot.
Michael has the ball, again guarded by Shawn Marion. The fadeaway, yes! With 4 and 8/10 seconds remaining, the West takes a timeout.
While the game would end up being won by the West in double overtime, Michael had given the world one last moment to add to his legend, something that many thought they would never see again. Michael Jordan would play his last professional basketball game on April 16, 2003 against the 76ers. The basketball-loving Philly crowd was electric, and everyone wanted to get a glimpse of Michael's last moments on the hardwood. The game itself didn't have much to offer. Jordan struggled from the field and eventually took a seat with the game out of reach. But chants from the crowd for Mike to step back onto the court for one last time at the end of the game were met with Jordan slowly getting out of his seat and making his way to the scorer's table. Michael would be intentionally fouled and hit 2 shots at the free throw line for the final points of his NBA career. It wasn't the storybook ending that Jordan's last game in Chicago had been. There were no championships on the line, no national spotlight, and no game winner. The greatest player that had ever touched a basketball to that day walked off the court and into the darkness of the tunnel for the final time. Michael Jordan's return to the game of basketball in Washington will always be seen by many as an eyesore to his storybook career. The images of him jogging his way up and down NBA courts in a Wizards uniform against NBA stars who were much younger than him will always pale in comparison to the memories of him flying through the air in Chicago and winning championships. But to ignore the way the story ends means you miss out on the beauty of his final moments on the hardwood. Very few people ever get to be the best at what they do forever, but even fewer get the opportunity to return past their prime and prove that they still have a glimpse of what made them great. Jordan's last years with the Wizards gave Michael the chance to face off against some of what would become the NBA's next wave of star players, meaning he had played against 3 generations of the best the game had to offer. No, Michael wasn't the same dominant player that the world fell in love with, but at the age of 40, he was still able to compete at the game's highest level, even proving at times that he was still one of the best players in the world. Time doesn't slow down for anyone, but to be able to defy time for even a moment, the same way he seemed to once defy gravity, is what made Jordan's time with the Wizards so special.
That's a tough ending, my brother. That's a tough ending. W documentary, man. You know, let me know what other documentaries we need to watch together, my brothers and sisters. I'm here, man. I ain't gonna lie, this is vibey, a nice little video. You know, chill out, just listen. You know, and take some information. If you guys enjoyed this reaction, y'all know what to do. Click on the last reaction, making a case for Michael Jordan to be the GOAT. You know, that's real easy. That's real easy to do. I know y'all gonna like this one. You know, turn on post notifications. Links in the description, man. And I'm out of here.